Amanda, Evelyn's daughter-in-law, missed the top stair. She fell hard, pride first. Behind her, Evelyn stood calm, holding the door wide open. "You first," she said. The mother-in-law they'd underestimated. Matthew, Evelyn's only son, shouted, "Mom, please!" But she'd already let go. Of him, of silence, of being used in her own home. "All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from." The smell of burnt toast still lingered in the air when the kitchen erupted. "I said the sponge goes on the holder," Evelyn said calmly but with finality, holding the dripping scrubber with 2 fingers. "That green slime on the counter isn't sanitary." Amanda rolled her eyes without looking up from her phone. "It's a sponge, Evelyn, not a newborn." Evelyn didn't flinch. She had lived through harder things than a passive-aggressive daughter-in-law with a superiority complex. She set the sponge on the holder. "And yet, I seemed to be the only one cleaning up after it." Amanda turned then, slowly, like she was winding up. Her face tightened into something ugly. "You know what your real problem is? You act like this house is still yours. Newsflash, you're just the extra room we didn't kick out yet." There it was. Evelyn didn't move. She simply blinked once. "Matthew and I agreed." Amanda laughed sharply, stepping forward. "Matthew doesn't agree with anything. That's why we're stuck here. But don't worry, once we renovate, you'll have a quiet nook somewhere." And with no warning, no theatrics, Amanda's leg snapped forward, a clean, pointed kick, just below Evelyn's left knee. Pain flared bright and fast, like a match struck too close to skin. Evelyn grunted, stumbling back, grabbing the edge of the counter for balance. Amanda leaned in, her voice a poisonous whisper, "Fall already." Then she turned and walked out, barefoot steps thudding up the stairs like a drum roll. Evelyn stayed rooted in place. She didn't cry, didn't call out, just pressed a hand against her shin and sat, carefully, on the stairs. Her fingers trembled faintly, but not from weakness, not from age, from calculation. Matthew appeared 5 seconds too late, holding a grocery bag. "Hey, I grabbed the almond milk you like. Wait, what happened?" Evelyn looked up at him, her face unreadable. "She kicked you?" he asked, voice low, unsure if he was more afraid of her answer or Amanda hearing it. "She was upset," Evelyn said, voice like glass. "And ungrateful, and unkind." He sighed, setting the bag on the floor. "Can we please not make this a thing right now? It's been a week, Mom. She's been stressed. Everyone's tired." "She assaulted me, Matthew." He winced. "I just think escalating will make everything worse." "Escalating," Evelyn repeated, more to herself than to him. Matthew stood there a beat longer, then quietly backed away. "Let's just cool off, okay? I'll talk to her later." Evelyn didn't answer. She waited until his footsteps faded down the hall, until she heard the bedroom door shut with a gentle click. Then she rose. Her limp was minimal, an old dancer's ability to mask pain, but the stiffness in her gait betrayed her. She moved through the quiet house slowly, pausing briefly by the family photo wall. Amanda had taken down the picture of Evelyn and her late husband last week, claiming the frame clashed. Evelyn didn't replace it. She didn't need to. She remembered what the house used to sound like. Jazz playing on Sundays, laughter from the sunroom, the rustle of pages when her husband read aloud after dinner. She walked into her study and opened the bottom drawer of the file cabinet, where nothing was digital and everything still smelled like printer ink and dry folders, deed papers, original signatures, her name, still the owner, still on top. She smoothed the edges with care and set the documents on the desk like she was laying out a map. The light from the desk lamp sharpened the black ink of the notary's seal. Amanda thought this house belonged to her now, that she'd inherit it through attrition, disrespect by disrespect, insult by insult, until Evelyn finally crumbled like old plaster. She hadn't accounted for one thing. Evelyn Carter had lived through more than grief and mortgages. She'd survived hospitals, loneliness, a decade of caregiving, and now she was finally standing still long enough to see what needed to be done. She pulled out her phone and opened a note titled simply, "Timeline," typed in tonight's date, then added, "Incident, physical, Witness? None. Response? None. Matthew neutral, Amanda aggressive. She pressed save. From upstairs, laughter filtered down. Amanda's voice, high and bitter. Evelyn shut the cabinet drawer gently. Then, with unhurried grace, she opened her laptop and searched one phrase: evicting family from shared residence in Colorado. Her fingers stopped mid-keystroke when the auto-suggestion popped up. Can you remove someone from your home if they're not on the deed? She clicked and smiled. It had started with compassion. Matthew had lost his job the summer after Evelyn's hip surgery, laid off by email like the rest of the junior managers at the bank. He had called, voice trembling between shame and hope, asking if they could crash for a couple of months, while he figured things out. Evelyn, still recovering from physical therapy and a lifetime of believing in her son, said yes without hesitation. She remembered the first night they arrived, Amanda floating in with her oversized tote and diffused peppermint spray, claiming the guest room with the better light. "This'll do," she had said. Evelyn had smiled politely, even after Amanda referred to the antique console table in the foyer as dead grandma energy. That had been 10 months ago. Now Evelyn stood in front of her laundry room door, jiggling the handle like she was the intruder. It was locked. She pressed her ear to the wood, inside the familiar thrum of the dryer. Amanda's new bath towels probably, high thread count, probably bought with Evelyn's own Costco membership. She knocked once. Nothing. Again, still nothing. She didn't yell. She turned quietly and walked back to her room, counting the small betrayals along the hallway. The new art Amanda had hung, some abstract print that Evelyn found cold and soulless, right over the old family portrait she'd boxed up temporarily. The new light bulbs Amanda insisted on, clinical, too white. Amanda had even swapped out the hallway rug with something machine-washable and gender-neutral, despite Evelyn never asking for the change. "Modern living," Amanda had said once, tapping a calendar app on her iPad. "You'll get used to it." Evelyn had nodded then, too tired to argue. But tonight, she opened a folder on her desk titled simply House and added a new entry: locked out of laundry, again. No prior notice, guest privileges revoked without communication. Below it, she pasted a screenshot of Amanda's text from 2 nights ago. "Please don't rearrange the fridge again. You mix up the meat drawer, and it's unhygienic." She'd ended it with a smiley face. Evelyn didn't reply to that one, but she printed it now, highlighting the timestamp. Underneath, she clipped the utility bill. Her name on it, her payment history, clean. Amanda and Matthew hadn't paid a single month's worth of anything in writing. Receipts, screenshots, dates. Her weapon wasn't rage. It was record-keeping. Downstairs, the front door slammed. Evelyn watched from her upstairs window as Amanda climbed into a friend's Jeep, oversized, headlights too bright. Music thumped as they pulled away. Amanda didn't glance back. The driveway was stained with tire tracks from their weekend parties. Evelyn never complained, but she'd started snapping pictures every time someone parked crooked on her lawn. Her phone buzzed, a voicemail transcription from earlier that day. Amanda again. "Hey Evelyn, just a reminder, we're having people over Friday. If you want to, go to a movie or something during that time, that'd be awesome. No request. Just a displacement." Evelyn clicked the email tab and began composing a new message. To Irene Bell. Subject: quick question. She typed slowly, carefully. Can a co-occupant be removed from a home if they pay no rent, have no written agreement, and are not on the deed? She stared at the sentence for a long time before hitting send. Outside, the house next door flickered with porch light. Old Mrs. Levin was out watering her petunias in the dark, like she always did when her insomnia hit. Evelyn gave a small wave. Mrs. Levin waved back and lingered. Evelyn wasn't sure if it was solidarity or concern. Maybe both. Behind her, the hallway echoed with the sound of Matthew's voice. Low, hesitant. "You should have told her about the lock," he was saying. Amanda responded, something short and sharp Evelyn couldn't make out. Then, louder. "This is our home too, Matthew. She's just clinging to what's already gone." Evelyn didn't flinch. She returned to her file folder and tucked another page inside. Item: Amanda's recorded voice message. Tone, entitled. Subject, presumption of ownership. She closed the folder slowly, then locked it in the desk drawer. Her tea had gone cold, but she didn't bother reheating it. Instead, she walked to the mirror and looked herself in the eye. Her reflection didn't look tired anymore. It looked ready. It started with laughter. Not the kind that softened rooms, but the sharp, tinny sound of someone who'd never learned to whisper. Evelyn paused in the hallway, a basket of folded towels in her hands, when she heard Amanda's voice float down from the upstairs landing. "No, seriously," Amanda said through speakerphone. "She still walks around like she owns the place, like, honey, you signed it over in spirit the minute we moved in." Silence from the friend, then Amanda again, louder now. "Yeah, no rent, no lease, and Matthew's her only kid. The house is basically ours. She just hasn't accepted it yet." A high, screechy laugh from the other line. "Right? She acts like we're squatters or something. Poor thing probably thinks her voice still matters." Evelyn stood there, hands tightening on the edge of the towel basket. For a moment she couldn't breathe, not because of the insult, but because the air had turned thick with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. Her fingers didn't shake from rage. It wasn't grief, either. It was a recognition. Amanda wasn't just disrespectful. She was calculating, and she thought Evelyn was too frail, too old, too done to stop it. Evelyn backed away from the stairs, set the basket down on the hall bench, and walked to her bedroom. She changed into slacks, a pressed shirt, and slipped on a blazer, the one she wore to her husband's memorial. She hadn't visited Irene's office in years, but her hand found the keys on instinct. She didn't leave a note. The elevator at Bell and Meyer Law ticked down from floor 5 like a countdown. Evelyn stepped out with slow precision, her cane just for show now, her face unreadable. Irene Bell was mid-sentence with a younger associate when she looked up and froze. Her expression softened instantly. "Evelyn," she said, standing, "you didn't say you were coming." "I needed the kind of conversation emails don't handle." Irene nodded and waved her into the glass-walled office. She closed the door behind them and gestured to the armchair across from her desk. Evelyn didn't sit. Instead, she pulled a manila folder from her handbag and placed it neatly in the center of the table. Voice transcripts, photos, text messages, no lease, no rental record, and not $1 toward bills in 10 months. Irene flipped through it slowly. "You've been documenting everything?" "I've been watching my own erasure." A beat passed. Irene's eyes skimmed down a highlighted phone record. Then she closed the folder. "You still hold legal ownership of the property?" "Title is in my name. No cosigners, no transfers." "Then yes," Irene said. "You can absolutely revoke Amanda's right to occupy the residence. It won't be quick, but it will be legal. Quietly, if you want it that way." Evelyn's mouth didn't move for a moment. Then she gave the smallest nod. "It's not revenge," she said. "No," Irene agreed. "It's a correction." The two women sat in silence for a moment, the kind that hums with mutual understanding. Evelyn finally lowered herself into the armchair, exhaling like someone releasing ballast from a sinking ship. "I'll draft the preliminary filing," Irene said, opening a fresh document. "We'll start with a written notice of termination. Colorado law requires 30 days if there's no lease. After that, if they refuse to leave, they will." Irene smiled thinly. "Then we proceed to a formal eviction hearing, paperwork, testimony. But from the record you've built, it's solid." Evelyn looked out the office window. Below, traffic moved in predictable lines, cars stopping where they should, turning when told. "If it takes months," she said quietly, "that's fine. I've waited longer for less." Irene paused her typing. "Do you want to notify them right away?" "No," Evelyn said, her voice calm. "Let Amanda believe she's still winning." The office printer whirred to life as Irene hit print on the draft notice. Evelyn didn't look at it. She was already thinking 3 moves ahead. As Irene walked her to the elevator, she touched Evelyn's hand gently. "This is going to get loud before it gets quiet." Evelyn met her gaze, eyes steady. "Let it." The elevator doors slid closed with a soft mechanical sigh. Back in the house that night, Amanda was back in her usual spot, curled on the sectional couch, laptop open, a glass of Pinot balanced against her knee. "You're out late," she said without looking up. Evelyn didn't answer. She walked upstairs, slow and silent, into her room, locked the door, then opened the folder Irene had given her, a duplicate copy of the draft notice, and set it beside the one labeled House. She reached for a pen. In the corner, she wrote the date, then underlined it once. The week that followed passed with unnerving civility. Evelyn made French toast on Sunday. She set the table with linen napkins and poured orange juice into the glasses with care. Amanda breezed in late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that said, "Bless this mess," muttering something about a late night and mimosa headaches. Matthew offered a limp smile. "This looks great, Mom." Evelyn nodded gently. "Eat while it's hot." Amanda didn't even say thank you. Evelyn didn't flinch. She watched Amanda pick at her plate while scrolling through her phone. She noticed Matthew's eyes dart back and forth, uncertain, like he could feel something brewing but couldn't name it. Good, Evelyn thought. Let him stew in ambiguity. That afternoon, while Amanda napped upstairs with a humidifier running at full blast, Evelyn had the locksmith come. "Just the front and side doors," she said, arms crossed, tone crisp. "New keys, please. High security if possible." He didn't ask why. She paid in cash and took both keys. One would go into the fireproof box. The other would stay on her ring. Matthew and Amanda wouldn't even notice, at least not yet. 2 days later, a man from a small security company showed up in an unmarked van. He spent 3 hours discreetly installing new outdoor cameras, one above the porch, one pointed at the driveway, and another tucked discreetly near the back gate. By the time Amanda noticed, it was already done. "Are we expecting burglars or something?" she called out, arms folded, staring at the blinking blue light. Evelyn didn't look up from her crossword puzzle. "Just being proactive. You can't be too careful these days." Amanda shrugged and disappeared into her yoga room. Matthew didn't say a word. Thursday, a certified letter arrived. Irene had sent it priority. Evelyn signed for it herself and tucked it under her sweater, walking it quietly to her bedroom. She opened the envelope, smoothed the crisp paper flat, and slid it into her drawer beside the house file. It felt like slipping a final puzzle piece into place. Amanda didn't get the mail that day. She was too busy rearranging swatches of fabric on the upstairs landing. She'd been chattering for the past hour about light oak flooring and exposed beams. "I've been thinking," she said over dinner that night, skewering a cherry tomato with her fork. "We should really redo the upstairs soon, maybe even knock out that awkward closet off the landing. Just open it up." Matthew nodded absently, chewing. "Yeah, might be time." Evelyn set her fork down, smiled. "You think so?" she asked sweetly. Amanda didn't even look up. "Yeah, I mean, we're probably gonna be here for a while, right?" Evelyn reached for her water glass, took a slow sip, then placed it down with surgical precision. "It won't be yours for long." Amanda blinked. "What?" she asked, a short laugh behind the word. Evelyn stood, collecting her plate with care. "I said the food won't keep long if it's left out. You know how these older fridges can be." Amanda looked to Matthew, confused. He gave a shrug, half smile like he wasn't sure if something had been lost in translation or delivered with razor-edge intent. That night, Evelyn folded a soft fleece throw over the back of the living room chair, smoothed the cushion, checked the angle of the new ring feed on her phone, all working, everything humming toward a single end. Upstairs, she could hear Amanda laughing again, talking to someone, probably the same friend from the speakerphone call. Evelyn no longer needed to strain to hear the words. She knew the tone by heart now. Entitlement was always louder than truth. Back in her bedroom, Evelyn opened her email. A fresh message from Irene sat unread, subject line. "Notice received, next step timeline." She didn't open it, not yet. She turned off the lamp, the glow from the hallway nightlight casting long shadows across the carpet. Outside, a wind chime danced against the porch rail. Inside, Evelyn slept with the calm of someone who knew exactly when the ground beneath her enemy would give way. The kitchen had always been Evelyn's command center. She knew the sound of every drawer, every hinge, every spoon in its rightful place. So when Amanda yanked open the utensil drawer and slammed it shut hard enough to rattle the wine glasses, Evelyn didn't jump, but she did brace. "You really think you're subtle?" Amanda's voice sliced the silence like broken glass. "I got the letter." Evelyn stirred her tea without looking up. "Then you should know it's not a surprise." Amanda took 2 steps closer, jaw clenched so tight her teeth might crack. "You're throwing your own family out. You want to die alone in this mausoleum?" "I want my house to feel like a home again," Evelyn said simply. Amanda laughed, a short, shrill, off-key thing. "You're unstable, senile. This is elder paranoia. Everyone will see it." Evelyn finally looked up. "I documented everything. Don't mistake my silence for absence." Matthew appeared in the doorway, drawn like a ghost to static. "Can we not do this right now?" he muttered. Amanda whirled on him. "Seriously? You're just going to stand there?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "He's been standing there for 10 months. Matthew rubbed the back of his neck. "Let's just take a breath. Give it some time. Maybe we can all cool off before lawyers get involved." "I've had time," Evelyn said, rising slowly. "You wasted it." Amanda stepped forward. "Then I guess we're going to court?" "Then I hope you bring more than bad manners and entitlement," Evelyn said, "because that's all you've got." Amanda stormed out, her socked feet thudding against the stairs. A door slammed. Matthew stayed frozen, like if he moved the air might crack open. "I didn't want this," he mumbled. "No," Evelyn said. "You just refused to stop it." Later that afternoon, Evelyn met with Irene on Zoom. The screen flickered as Irene read through the updated file Evelyn had sent. Emails, time-stamped photos, and a calendar of Amanda's unannounced parties. "She's got nothing," Irene said flatly. "No lease, no documentation, no financial contribution. She'll try public pity," Evelyn said. "Lies. She's good at those." Irene nodded. "Doesn't hold up in court, but it might play well online." By evening, Evelyn saw it unfold exactly as predicted. A post appeared on Amanda's Facebook page, visible to friends of friends. "Been living with my MIL since Matt lost his job. Took care of her, helped renovate, made this place livable. Now she's evicting us. Can't believe what people will do when they think no one's looking. Pray for us." The comments started rolling in. "OMG, what? Some people just don't appreciate family. Take her to court, girl. That's abuse." Evelyn didn't respond. She printed it, highlighted the timestamp, stapled it to her records. She didn't need sympathy. She needed the truth, organized and admissible. Upstairs, Amanda blasted music loud enough to shake the vent covers. Matthew paced the hallway like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. Evelyn, meanwhile, retrieved a leather-bound folder from the fireproof box under her bed. She hadn't opened it since her husband died. Her will. She took out a pen, uncapped it, and made 3 swift changes. Amanda's name disappeared entirely. Matthew's portion, once earmarked for the house, now reduced to a modest memory. An old record collection, a photo album, and a note Evelyn had written long ago, back when he still called her Mom instead of her. She signed it with clean strokes, folded, sealed. Then she opened a new tab on her computer and began drafting an addendum, the rest of the estate, money, accounts, house, to be split between Olivia, her goddaughter in Oregon, and a community housing initiative for displaced seniors. Legacy, she thought, not inheritance, legacy. The music stopped suddenly, then Amanda's voice. "She thinks she's going to win just because she's old and organized?" Evelyn turned off the monitor and stood. She moved through the quiet hallway like a woman walking through fog she'd already mapped in advance. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, listening to their muffled conversation behind a half-closed door. Let them whisper. Let them scream. The papers were signed. By Friday morning, the smear campaign was in full bloom. Amanda had discovered Canva. Her Instagram story was a carousel of curated pity, a sepia-toned photo of her and Matthew on the porch, a caption in a hand-drawn script font. "We opened our hearts and home to help family. Now we're being tossed like trash. Please share if you've ever felt abandoned. The hashtags followed. Elder abuse. Displaced family. We deserve better. Evelyn stood at her printer, feeding each frame of Amanda's digital fiction into a thick binder labeled Defense. She didn't even pause when Amanda's voice rang out from the living room. Oh my God, it's already at 600 views. She's lying, Matthew said flatly. You know she's not throwing us out without reason. She's rewriting the story, Amanda snapped, and you're letting her. Again. Evelyn slid the final sheet into its sleeve. The paper crackled. Outside, birds chirped with the kind of innocence only nature had the privilege of. That afternoon, while watering her potted succulents on the porch, Evelyn noticed a white bakery box sitting on the top step. Inside, a perfectly golden apple pie. Homemade, still faintly warm, tucked under the lid, a handwritten note in blue gel pen. You deserve peace. From someone who knows what it feels like to be erased. There was no signature, but Evelyn scanned the street slowly, and across the way, Mrs. Levin gave her a slow, solemn nod from behind her curtain. By Saturday night, the campaign had begun to fray. Amanda's posts were louder, more erratic. A TikTok appeared, shaky, tearful, with Amanda claiming Evelyn had hid her medication and manipulated the system. Evelyn clicked download. Matthew stopped her in the hallway after dinner. Look, can't we find a way to just pause this? Maybe talk it out? We're far past talking, Evelyn said, brushing past him. You didn't have to drag Olivia into it, he muttered. She's not even blood. Evelyn stopped, turned. She's not, Evelyn said. She's better. Matthew blinked, stunned by the directness. But he didn't follow. That night, the argument started again. Loud, frantic, through paper-thin walls. I don't care if she owns it, Amanda shouted. We're still family. We don't pay rent, Amanda. What do you expect? I expect you to take my side. She's not well, she's vindictive. You said that yourself. Evelyn sat on her bed, pulled the binder close and reviewed every tab. Social media, audio files, screenshots, receipts. She had everything but their final notice. That would come soon enough. She opened her phone, drafted a new message, paused with her thumb over the send button. Once you sent something like this, there was no walking it back. But Evelyn didn't want to walk it back. She wanted to walk forward, through the door they had taken for granted. She hit send. The date is set. You'll need to pack. No emojis, no signature, just the facts. 2 minutes passed before a door slammed so hard it made a painting tilt in the hallway. Amanda screamed something unintelligible. Matthew shouted back. Another door slammed. Evelyn calmly stood, straightened the frame on the wall, and took a deep breath. The house wasn't quiet. Not yet, but the tide had turned. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, just before noon. A knock, sharp, no nonsense, echoed through the house. Evelyn didn't rise to answer it. She didn't need to. From the front window, she watched the uniformed process server step back from the door after placing the envelope squarely in Amanda's hand. His badge swung gently from his belt. He said nothing, only handed over the papers and turned to leave. What the hell is this? Amanda shrieked. Evelyn reached for her phone, hit record, and walked slowly to the front hallway. This isn't legal, Amanda shouted, waving the papers like a flag of war. You don't get to just serve someone like this. I live here. Matthew appeared behind her, shirt half-buttoned, his hair sticking up like he'd just rolled out of a nap. Amanda, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. She ambushed us with a stranger on our own porch. Evelyn lifted her phone slightly, camera angled at chest height. You've now been formally served, she said, voice flat as slate. You have 5 days to vacate. I'm calling a lawyer. You should, Evelyn said. Amanda's face contorted. She crumpled the notice in her fist, then hurled it at Evelyn's feet. You're a heartless old witch. You don't get to win just because you're closer to death. Matthew flinched. Amanda, I've taken care of you. I washed your clothes. I made this house livable. You locked me out of my own laundry room, Evelyn said. You called my routines contamination. You told me to fall. Amanda's mouth opened, then shut. You don't remember saying it? Evelyn added. Because I do. Amanda turned, knocking over the umbrella stand with her bag. A metal clatter rang through the hallway like an alarm bell. She ran upstairs. Matthew hovered in the doorway, torn, blinking fast. "Mom!" Evelyn didn't answer. "I know she's dramatic," he said. "But do you really want this to end like this?" Evelyn looked at him, not as her son, but as a man who had long since stopped protecting the hand that raised him. "You watched the first time," she said, voice like polished stone. "And you're still watching." Matthew said nothing. He stepped back and closed the door behind him. That night, Amanda lashed out again, this time at the baseboards. The pounding started just after midnight. Evelyn sat in the living room, headphones in, listening to a jazz album from the 70s while the sound of something heavy, a boot maybe, thudded rhythmically against the upstairs floor. At 1:03 a.m., Amanda burst into the kitchen wild-eyed and barefoot. "I'm not leaving," she spat. "You can send 1,000 notices and I'll still be here." Evelyn said nothing, just calmly slid her phone across the counter, the screen still recording. Amanda grabbed a mug from the sink and threw it against the tile backsplash. It shattered. Evelyn didn't even blink. Matthew appeared moments later, dragging Amanda backward by the elbow. "That's enough!" "She's pushing me!" Amanda screamed. "She's making me crazy on purpose!" Matthew looked at Evelyn, pleading. "She's spiraling. Please, just give us a few more weeks. I'll fix it." "I swear you won't," Evelyn said. "You never have." By morning, Irene had the call logged, the video files uploaded, and a draft of the emergency restraining order already in progress. "This is harassment," she told Evelyn over the phone. "We'll include the video, the thrown object, and her refusal to comply. It'll hold." Evelyn didn't ask what happened next. She already knew. Before hanging up, she looked out the kitchen window. The mailbox flag was up. Amanda must have mailed something. Evelyn wondered what kind of fiction it was this time. A letter to a cousin? A church? Another blog post posing as truth? She didn't care. She picked up her phone again, opened her text messages, typed, 5 days. That includes tonight. No name, no punctuation, just the clock, ticking. The upstairs hallway smelled faintly of lavender and floor polish. Evelyn's steps were slow but steady, her hand brushing along the wall as if reacquainting herself with something lost. She paused at the corner bedroom. This had once been Matthew's nursery. She remembered the soft yellow paint, the rocking chair beside the window, the humming sound of her husband's voice reading Goodnight Moon with such reverence you'd think it was scripture. She stepped inside. Amanda's gym bag was tossed on the floor, half-zipped, bottles of expensive lotion, supplements, and 3 pairs of noise-canceling headphones cluttered the dresser. A mug stained with lipstick sat next to a Bluetooth speaker, blasting lo-fi beats on low volume. Evelyn didn't touch anything, yet. Instead, she moved through the house like it was a living memory. In the Mauer dining room, she traced her hand over the edge of the table where her husband had carved a tiny chip during their first Thanksgiving. A turkey too dry, laughter so loud it drowned out the news on TV. The backyard still bore faint tire tracks from Matthew's first bicycle. She could still hear the echo of his giggles when he fell into the hydrangeas, and in the linen closet, tucked behind a box of old receipts, was the faded welcome mat they had rolled out when they first bought the house in 1983. She hadn't thought about these things in years, but now, every memory returned like a survivor. By mid-afternoon, Evelyn began reclaiming space with surgical precision. She packed Amanda's yoga blocks into a bin and labeled it temporary items, took down her faux inspirational wall decals, live, laugh, love, and placed them into a garbage bag without ceremony. Then she did something she hadn't done in nearly 4 decades. She locked her bedroom door. The key, once tucked inside a jewelry box Evelyn hadn't opened since 1985, turned smoothly in the old brass knob. The click was both strange and satisfying. That night, Amanda stood outside the locked door and rattled the handle. "Are you serious?" she called out. "What are you doing in there? You don't own privacy." Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, she set another folder into the drawer, labeled Security. Inside, photos of every item she'd removed, time-stamped, documented. By Thursday morning, retaliation arrived. Two caseworkers from the Colorado Department of Human Services rang the bell just after breakfast. Both wore polite expressions and state ID badges clipped to their belts. "Ms. Carter?" one asked. "We received a report of possible elder neglect and domestic conflict within the home. We'd like to ask you a few questions, if that's all right." Amanda stood a few feet behind them, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with manufactured concern. "She's isolating herself," Amanda said. "She's paranoid. She's hoarding food and locking herself away. I'm worried about her mental state. Honestly, it's heartbreaking." Evelyn opened the door wider. "Of course, come in." They asked questions. Evelyn answered each one calmly, precisely. She offered tea, then folders. One labeled financials, showing every utility bill paid by her. One labeled legal, the eviction order, court documents, and property deed. One labeled incidents, dated screenshots, video files, and the footage of Amanda throwing the coffee mug just 4 nights earlier. She slid them across the table like cards in a high-stakes game of poker. When they finished reading, the younger caseworker cleared her throat. "We'll need to file a report," she said. "But based on this, Ms. Carter, you appear to be fully competent and the primary victim of targeted psychological harassment." Amanda's face drained of color. The older caseworker turned to her. "Ma'am, making false allegations in retaliation of a legal eviction proceeding is a serious matter." Amanda opened her mouth, then shut it again. The door closed behind them with quiet finality. Evelyn walked into the living room and sat. Her tea had gone cold. She didn't mind. A notification pinged on her phone. Subject line, "Case review complete. DHS documentation added to eviction file." She smiled faintly. One more piece in place. Then she stood, opened the front closet, and pulled out Amanda's favorite suitcase, the same one she bragged about when they moved in. Saturday afternoon arrived with the kind of uneasy quiet that made the walls feel too thin. Evelyn stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing a teacup when the knock came, not on the front door, but on the window. She turned. A tall, angular woman with stiff blonde hair and a grim, purse-lipped smile stood just outside, tapping her ring against the glass like a summons. Amanda trailed behind her, arms crossed like a sulking teenager. Evelyn dried her hands and moved to the door. "Hello," the woman said sharply before Evelyn had fully opened it. "I'm Donna McKinley, Amanda's mother." She said it as if it were a credential. "Then I'm sorry," Evelyn replied, stepping aside with cool detachment. Donna swept into the entryway, immediately scanning the walls. "I see you've made some changes." Amanda followed, eyes already darting toward the camera above the doorframe. "Just want this documented, Mom. She's been unstable." Evelyn didn't rise to the bait. She pressed a small button on her phone. The soft red light on the hallway camera blinked once. "Mind if we sit?" Donna asked, already lowering herself into the living room's armchair like she'd claimed it. "I do, actually," Evelyn said. "This won't take long." Donna crossed her legs. "Amanda tells me there's been confusion, miscommunication, emotional misunderstanding." "She told me to fall," Evelyn replied evenly, "and then tried to sell the house from under me." Donna's smile faltered. "Mother, she's twisting it," Amanda began, but Evelyn raised a single hand. It was enough. Matthew emerged from the hallway, drawn into the tension like kindling near flame. "Can we just stop for a second and talk like adults?" "We've tried that," Evelyn said. "You refused to listen. Now we're beyond talking." Donna sat forward, voice too sweet. "I understand the emotional investment you have in this home, but let's be honest." "Don't," Evelyn said sharply, for the first time showing a sliver of edge. "Don't use words like investment when you mean ownership I plan to ignore." Amanda huffed and rolled her eyes. "She's playing the victim." Evelyn turned to Matthew, eyes calm but full of steel. "You may love her, but she doesn't respect me, and that's where this ends." Matthew shifted uncomfortably. "Can't we?" "No," Evelyn said. "You've been trying to can't-we your way through everything. There's no more room for cowardice here." Amanda let out a scoffing laugh. "Oh, please, look at her, locking herself in her room, parading files like a wannabe lawyer. This whole thing is pathetic." She took a step forward. You should have just fallen. You should have tripped, broken a hip, moved out quietly like old people are supposed to. Her voice curled into a sneer. But no! You're still standing, all bent and brittle, pretending like you're still in charge. Evelyn walked past her to the front door and opened it wide. A gust of cold wind blew in. You first. Amanda stared. Evelyn didn't blink. The door stayed open. Amanda's face twisted. Oh, I'll go. When the cops drag you out first. She turned to stomp out, but misjudged the edge of the first stair. Her boot clipped the lip. Her ankle twisted. She toppled forward, arms flailing like a cartoon villain just one frame too late. The thud of her body hitting the bottom landing echoed like a drum roll through the foyer. Donna screamed. Matthew rushed forward. Amanda groaned on the floor, clutching her ankle. Evelyn stood in the doorway, unmoved. Should I call someone? She asked quietly. Or will you? No one answered. But the door was still open. By Monday morning, the bruises on Amanda's ankle had turned the color of spoiled plums, but that didn't stop her from limping theatrically around the house, pausing just long enough at each corner to sigh within earshot. Evelyn didn't respond. At precisely 8 a.m., a plain white moving truck rolled up the driveway. 2 uniformed men stepped out. One wore sunglasses and carried a clipboard. The other gave Evelyn a polite nod as she opened the door. Ms. Carter? The clipboard man asked. Yes, all belongings marked in the east bedroom, second upstairs guest room, and half of the hallway closet are to be packed and moved out. He nodded. Per eviction order? Evelyn handed him a laminated copy of the court directive. Per statute. Page 3. Amanda appeared at the top of the stairs, robe hanging off one shoulder like she was starring in a low-budget courtroom soap. You can't do this, she spat. This is my stuff. I'll move it on my time. Legally, Evelyn said. You've had that time. This crew is licensed and certified. Your things will be boxed, inventoried, and delivered to the address you filed with the court. I didn't file anything. Irene sent notice, Evelyn replied, not even looking at her. Twice. Amanda stomped, or tried to, and nearly tripped again. She caught herself on the railing and shrieked, You're evicting me like I'm some squatter. You are, Evelyn said, turning away. In the hallway, movers moved briskly. Amanda's framed motivational quotes were bubble-wrapped without ceremony. Her makeup drawer was dumped into a sealed bin. Evelyn had already inventoried every item with time-stamped photos. Downstairs, Matthew hovered uselessly by the kitchen island. She's in pain, he said, and humiliated. Can't you just give us a couple more days, please, just to breathe? Evelyn picked up her tea. I gave you 10 months. He stepped closer. Okay, I get it, but maybe just one final sit-down? For closure? Just the 3 of us? Evelyn set her cup down gently, deliberately. You sit with who protects you, Matthew, she said. I'll sit with who respects me. He opened his mouth, but there was no defense to that. Outside, the sound of boxes thudding against the truck floor was muffled by the cold. Amanda shouted something incoherent at one of the movers, who calmly replied, Ma'am, I'm just following the list. By noon, the house felt lighter. Amanda's plants were gone, her yoga mat, her monogrammed mug that once lived beside the sink like a permanent insult. At 12:43 p.m., a sheriff's deputy arrived to confirm the eviction closeout. Amanda refused to speak directly to him. She glared at Evelyn instead, her face pulled tight with venom and disbelief. You'll die alone, she hissed, limping past with the last of her tote bags slung over one shoulder. Evelyn didn't blink. And yet, I'll die in peace. Amanda stepped outside, head turned dramatically toward the sky like a martyr. Matthew Ling erred at the threshold. He looked back once, eyes full of something that might have been guilt or just the ache of realizing he'd chosen wrong too many times. I'll call you, he said. Evelyn stared at him. No need. Then she closed the door. Not slammed, just shut, quietly, decisively. By evening, the locksmith returned. Evelyn handed him a small box of keys with tape labels. Amanda, Matthew, garage, side gate. He dropped them one by one into a metal disposal bag and melted them with a soldering iron. She installed the new Ring camera herself, set the new security code, 1983, the year she bought the house. At 6:12 p.m., Irene sent confirmation. Title officially recorded under sole ownership, finalized. Evelyn opened the email, downloaded the PDF, printed it. She held the paper in her hands like something holy. Then she placed it in a new folder marked simply, Restoration. Outside, the moving truck disappeared down the street. Inside, silence finally settled like fresh snow. Evelyn set the last fork beside the china plate and stepped back. The table looked simple but elegant. Pale linen runner, tapered candles, and 4 place settings arranged with care. The 5th one remained untouched at the end of the table. She left it there anyway. Olivia arrived just before sunset, a bouquet of cream peonies in hand and a bottle of red tucked under her arm. "You look strong," she said, kissing Evelyn on the cheek, "and dangerous, like a woman who's finally taken her throne." Evelyn smiled. "It's just lamb stew." 2 neighbors followed, Mrs. Levin in her usual navy cardigan, and Clara from down the block, the one who'd slipped her business card into Evelyn's mailbox the day the eviction notice went public. She'd written only one thing on the back: "Whatever you need." They brought fresh bread and an apple crisp. No one spoke about Amanda, not directly. Over dinner, conversation drifted from books to porch repairs to Olivia's recent admission to a Midwestern law school. Evelyn listened more than she talked, nodding with the soft certainty of someone who had learned that silence often says more than righteousness. Still, her eyes flicked to the empty chair every so often. Matthew hadn't responded to her message, not even to say no. But she'd set the place for him just the same: plate, fork, folded napkin. It remained untouched, like a space reserved in a life she no longer expected him to return to. After dessert, Olivia stayed behind to help clear the dishes. They worked in tandem, rinsing and drying, moving in quiet rhythm like they'd done it 100 times before. "Do you miss him?" Olivia asked gently, drying the wine glasses. Evelyn didn't pretend not to understand. "Yes," she said, "but not the version he became to survive her." They finished the last dish. Olivia reached into her bag and handed over the bouquet. "You didn't lose anything," she said. "You reclaimed everything." Evelyn held the flowers close for a moment, not for the scent, but the weight. She set them in a vase on the mantel. Later that night, alone in the soft glow of the dining room, Evelyn logged into her email. One last legal document waited in her drafts: a permanent no-contact request for Amanda McKinley, filed through the county's civil court portal. It took 3 clicks: click, click, submit. She didn't feel lighter, but she did feel sealed, like the last window had finally been closed against the weather. Her phone buzzed minutes later, a notification from a social media account she hadn't blocked. Not yet. Amanda had posted a black and white selfie, cropped tight, eyes wide with affected sadness. "Lost a house but gained my peace. Sometimes what breaks you also frees you." Hundreds of likes, a few broken heart emojis, comments offering prayers and strength. Evelyn turned the volume down and stared at the screen. Then, softly, almost too low for even the walls to hear, she whispered, "You didn't lose a house." She paused, folding the napkin from Matthew's untouched place setting. "You lost your arrogance." She stood and dimmed the lights. Outside, the wind shifted. Inside, nothing moved. The paper arrived in a plain, manila envelope. No fanfare, no bow, just state-sealed confirmation of what Evelyn already knew in her bones. She unfolded the deed at the kitchen table, her hands deliberate, steady. The embossed seal caught the morning light. Her name, printed in bold serif font, sat alone at the top, unaccompanied, uncontested. Evelyn Carter, sole owner. No footnotes, no cosigner, no heir presumptive. She exhaled, not with relief, but recognition. It wasn't about the paper. It was about the fact that no one could ever again rewrite her story. Not with whispers, not with entitlement, not even with blood. She rose and crossed the living room to the fireplace. A narrow space above the mantel had remained empty for years. ever since Amanda removed the family portrait under the excuse of aesthetic clash. Evelyn lifted the deed, into a simple black frame. Nothing ornate, no gold edges or scripted fonts, just presence, permanence. She mounted it herself, measured, leveled, anchored. Beneath it, she added a brass plaque she'd ordered weeks ago from a local metal shop. It read, "You don't inherit respect, you earn it." That night, Olivia came by with soup and her laptop. They sat together at the dining table, Evelyn curled into her cardigan, Olivia typing with quick, confident fingers. "You should write this down," Olivia said. "What happened, what it felt like. Not the legal part, the emotional part." Evelyn looked skeptical. "I'm not interested in airing family grievances." "Not for drama," Olivia said. "For dignity, boundaries. You'd be surprised how many women your age, our age, are stuck living as ghosts in their own homes." Evelyn sipped her tea. "And you think a blog will change that?" "I think you might," Olivia replied. "You wouldn't even need to use your name. We'll post it anonymously, just share the structure, the silence, and how you broke it." Evelyn hesitated, then nodded once. The first post was titled, "When the Guest Becomes the Ghost, Reclaiming Your Home Without Screaming." Within 3 days, it had 1,200 views. Within 2 weeks, 40,000. The comments rolled in like soft waves. "I thought I was alone. I'm 72 and still afraid to lock my own bedroom door. Thank you for giving language to the quiet violence we live with. It's not petty. It's power." Evelyn didn't respond. She didn't need to. She read each one with a solemnity that came not from pride, but recognition. Somewhere around week 3, Olivia forwarded an email from the producer of a niche legal podcast called Gray Areas, focused on elder rights, property law, and multi-generational housing abuse. They wanted to do an episode, no names, just the facts, the feelings, the fallout. Evelyn declined the on-air interview, but agreed to write a statement. Olivia recorded it in voiceover. The episode aired on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, Evelyn's inbox was full, not of noise, of thanks. Letters came from New Mexico, Ohio, Vermont, handwritten, typed, sometimes scrawled on legal pads. One from a retired teacher in Georgia read, "I had no idea we were allowed to protect ourselves. I thought I had to stay grateful. You gave me permission to choose peace." Another ended simply with, "Because of you, I called my lawyer." Evelyn placed them in a wooden box she used to keep her husband's cufflinks. It sat on her desk now, labeled with a single word, echoes. Outside, wind rattled the bare trees. Autumn had given way to something quieter, not quite winter, but no longer fall. Inside, Evelyn adjusted the frame above the mantel. It hung perfectly level. Then she lit a candle and watched its flame hold steady. She didn't smile. Not quite. But her reflection in the window did. The paint roller moved in long, clean strokes across the wall, steady, unhurried, like she was erasing a memory rather than covering it. The guest room had once been Amanda's kingdom. Faux gold-framed quotes, a cluttered vanity, curtains too sheer for privacy but just transparent enough for performance. Now the walls were turning a soft, sea-glass green. Evelyn stepped back, satisfied. She didn't need perfection. Just control. The kind that came not from shouting or storming, but from choosing which color would greet the morning light. When the paint dried, she set a single vase of fresh tulips on the windowsill. No photos, no declarations, just space. Later that week, she brought a folding chair into the backyard and placed it in the far corner under the Japanese maple. A worn quilt rested across her knees. A mug of peppermint tea steamed in her hand. The house behind her didn't creak or hum. No slamming doors. No false apologies. No curated pity disguised as presence. It was quiet, and for the first time in years, it wasn't silence that made her ache. It was silence that healed. A single envelope arrived by mail that Thursday. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, angular, tight, familiar in a way that pinched. Inside, a birthday card, no return address, a printed message about thinking of you and hoping you're well. Nothing written, not even a name, just space where a signature should have been. Evelyn slid the card back into its envelope, sealed it with a piece of tape, and wrote "Return to sender" across the front. She didn't include a note. Matthew knew why. That evening, her phone rang just as the sky shifted from blue to bruised lavender. Olivia's voice was bright. "It's official. I'm in." Evelyn smiled into the receiver. "Law school?" "Yep, Colorado State. Full ride. I start in the fall." There was a pause. Not silence, but reverence. "I never would have done this without you," Olivia said. "Watching you fight, hold your ground, I realized law wasn't about arguing. It's about building walls for the people who need shelter." Evelyn felt something inside her settle, like a chair finally leveled on all four legs. "Then all of it was worth something," she said. "More than something," Olivia replied. "You started a fire, Evelyn, the kind that warms, not burns." After they hung up, Evelyn walked to the guest room again. The paint had dried beautifully. In the closet, hangers waited. The bed was made with fresh linens. But it didn't feel like a room holding ghosts anymore. It felt like a room holding potential. She sat on the edge of the mattress and looked out the window. The yard outside glowed in the soft gold of dusk. The porch light hadn't flickered in weeks. The fence didn't creak. The air didn't carry footsteps or muttered curses or passive sighs. The house no longer felt haunted, and neither did she. The podcast studio was tucked above a yoga studio in downtown Boulder, all reclaimed wood, minimalist decor, and soft acoustic playlists humming through the walls. Evelyn sat in a cushioned chair that sank too deep for her taste. Across from her, a matte black microphone perched like a sentinel. A producer adjusted her headset gently and gave her a thumbs up. "You comfortable, Miss Carter?" the host asked from behind the soundproof glass. "As much as I'll ever be," she said, smiling faintly. Olivia sat just off to the side, notebook in hand, eyes bright with pride. She'd offered to do the speaking herself, to protect Evelyn from exposure, but Evelyn had insisted. "Let them hear it from the one who lived it," she'd said. "I've been quiet long enough." The red light blinked on. The host's voice came through the headphones, warm and practiced. Today's episode of Gray Areas brings you the voice of someone who didn't just survive elder financial abuse. She documented it, dismantled it, and turned her silence into statute-backed strength. She's chosen to remain visually anonymous, but what she says, you'll remember. Evelyn didn't clear her throat. She didn't fidget. She simply spoke. Not loudly, not with theatrical rage, but with calm, deliberate gravity. "People think abuse only looks like bruises," she began, "but sometimes it looks like borrowed time that's never returned, or unpaid rent that turns into assumed ownership, or children who decide your home is their inheritance, and your voice is background noise." The host asked questions gently, about boundaries, legal protections, red flags. Evelyn answered each one with the kind of clarity you only get after walking through fire barefoot and choosing not to scream. At the 20-minute mark, the host paused. "If you could tell one thing to the women listening, women who might feel trapped the way you once did, what would it be?" Evelyn's fingers curled slightly in her lap. Olivia reached across and held her hand, soft pressure, no squeeze. "You're never too old to end being walked over," Evelyn said, voice steady. "You don't owe anyone the keys to your peace just because they share your last name." The silence that followed felt like reverence. The red light blinked off. When the headphones came off, Evelyn sat for a moment, letting the quiet settle. "That," the host said softly, "was one hell of a closing line." Outside in the hallway, Olivia gave her a long hug. "You did it," she whispered. Evelyn pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "No, we did. Now go change the world. I'll just keep patching the cracks here." They drove home with the windows half down. The air was sharp with early spring, lilac buds and mountain air. Evelyn rolled the window up after a while, but not all the way. She liked the reminder that she could control the draft now. 3 days later, the episode aired. By the end of the week, it had been streamed over 200,000 times. Within advocacy circles, it exploded, shared in forums, newsletters, Facebook groups titled "Second Lives and Daughters of Silence." Her voice, Clipped, anonymous, unassuming, became a rallying cry. The letters came in paper envelopes and digital inboxes alike. One from a widow in Kansas. "I'm 81. I thought it was too late. After hearing you, I told my grandson he had 30 days to move out or pay rent." Another from a woman in San Diego. "You gave me permission to fight?" Evelyn read each one at her dining table, candle flickering beside her. Then, in her careful handwriting, the same she once used for school permission slips and birthday invitations, she replied to each by hand. No platitudes, no scripts, just truth. "Thank you for reclaiming your voice," or "You're not alone anymore," or "I believe you." Each envelope sealed with gold foil stickers Olivia had gifted her, little suns with the words "Keep Rising" etched in cursive across the center. And when she finished each letter, she placed a small copy of the brass plaque inside. "You don't inherit respect, you earn it." Then she walked them to the mailbox herself, one by one, never rushed. Each step slow, each message sacred. The pen moved slowly, the ink steady. Evelyn paused between words, not out of hesitation but precision, the kind of calm that only came when you no longer owed the past an apology. The new will was clean, tight, unsentimental. Everything, the house, the investments, the quiet wealth tucked away from decades of living below her means, was left to two recipients, Olivia Hawthorne and a local nonprofit dedicated to elder housing and crisis intervention. She added a footnote, at Irene's suggestion, "in recognition of care received and legacy honored." Then she did something unexpected. She donated $5,000 in Amanda McKinley's name to a regional mental wellness program focused on women in high-conflict transitions. She didn't list herself as the donor, no receipts requested, no tax acknowledgement needed. It wasn't forgiveness, it was punctuation. Later that week, Evelyn climbed the attic stairs, slow but without fear, and opened a cedar chest she hadn't touched since 1998. Inside, hospital records from the shin fracture, X-rays, therapist referrals she never called, a letter from Amanda claiming it was all a misunderstanding. Evelyn shredded every sheet. There was no satisfaction in the sound, only silence. The final kind. She donated the chest, sold 2 old trunks, gave Olivia her husband's favorite chess set, with its missing rook and tiny coffee stain from a game played in grief 2 days after his funeral. She kept one item, a watercolor painting she'd bought on impulse from a sidewalk artist years ago. A staircase. Stone, crumbling in places, but leading unmistakably upward into a light so soft it almost hummed. Evelyn hung it in the hallway where the old family portrait used to be, right below the brass plaque. When Olivia came by that weekend and saw it, she stopped mid-step. "You finally hung something there," she said. Evelyn nodded. "I thought about painting over it all, but some things shouldn't be covered, just risen above." They stood quietly in front of the painting for a while, shoulder to shoulder. Then Olivia kissed her on the cheek and left, off to study contracts and torts and build the kind of legacy you don't inherit, the kind you earn. That night, Evelyn opened her journal, the leather-bound one with pages still crisp, mostly blank. She hadn't written in it since before Amanda moved in. Now she did. She didn't tell the whole story, not again. She told the ending. With a hand that didn't tremble, Evelyn wrote, "Amanda told me to fall. So I rose and let her drop." She stared at the sentence for a long time. The finality of it. The truth. Then she closed the book without signing it. Not because she wasn't proud, but because the truth doesn't always need a name attached. She slid the journal into the back of her bedroom safe, behind the title deed. Behind the letters she still reread on quiet evenings. Behind Olivia's first law school acceptance email, printed and folded 3 times. She turned the dial, heard the satisfying click. Then she stood in the center of her room, barefoot on the hardwood she'd paid for, laid herself. The house was still. The air was cold. The night outside waited. But inside, nothing shook. Not her breath, not her heart, not her home.